Hi guys, today I'm going to do a video where I talk about all of my absolute surprises and shocks and also my amazing disappointments of 2017. The first book that I'm going to talk about is one of my disappointments. This is a really difficult one to talk about, so I'm just going to get it out of the way and put it out there. And just as a rule, these disappointments I absolutely hated them. They're just books that I expected more of. So my first disappointment was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. This is so hard to say. It was so well written, obviously, but I just didn't connect with the story. I didn't like how Asa and Daisy's relationship developed. If you go back and watch my hopes and dreams and aspirations for Turtles All the Way Down in the comments, I talk about how much I love Daisy, and this book just twisted her for me and made her into a horrible person. And I don't think she's redeemed in any way for it. But I understand how John Green's focus in his writing is a lot about how people are so complex and you have to see people for what they are and no one's perfect. But I just really didn't understand this best friend relationship. Obviously, you guys know a lot about my best friend relationship, and that just is not the one to me. That just made me feel quite uncomfortable for Asa. And also, the whole point about she's got a mental health issue and it's really hard for her to manage. Yeah, it was uncomfortable to read, but that's what a lot of people love about this story. It's also what I liked about it. It was very truthful. I just didn't understand how the plot with the lizard or whatever it's called, I can't remember, the Tuatara and all this money and Davis was related to this storyline. I just did not understand it. I'm hoping John Green will do a comprehensive breakdown analysis, like literary analysis of his own book, because then I'll understand it and I'll read it and it'll be great. But I just didn't connect with it as much as I've connected with his other books, and that was why it was a disappointment for me. But also, I still want to meet John Green so much. He is like one of my role models and idols, and I will always stand by his books and his writing skills. This book just wasn't for me. Now on to one of my surprises of 2017. This one is less of a surprise because I wasn't anticipating it. It's just something I thought, you know what, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to educate myself and read something a bit different. And that was The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Not surprising if you've read this book. It's one of the best books I've ever read. It was absolutely amazing, and it's now being turned into a movie adaptation with Star as a main character, and the cast is amazing. And it's just a most brilliant book about really massive topics that are so truthful today. And it's really made me aware of the things that I say, the way that I look at the media, and it's just made me feel just so estranged from the media, but also like we can actually do something about it as a group of people, do something about it as people, as a society. But also it was so funny while it was so sad. It was just an absolute masterpiece. And even though I wasn't anticipating it because I didn't really know much about it when it came out, there was just something about it that made me want to pick it up, and I'm just so glad I did. It was one of my favourite books of the year so far, and it probably will not be knocked out of that list when I come to wrap up my year's reading in January. My next disappointment is another difficult one to talk about for me, and that is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. This is only a disappointment for me because of how much I loved A Court of Mist and Fury. A Court of Wings and Ruin began very slowly for me. I didn't like the separation. I thought that the forest scene about a quarter of the way through really was amazingly put together, but it just took too long to get there. I fell out of love with Lucian, even though a lot of people, A Court of Wings and Ruin really made him stand out for them. Him and Elaine just not the one for me. I really didn't enjoy it. And also the ending was just extremely heartbreaking. But also I thought that it kind of lacked a bit of like commitment with how it did end. Which obviously I'm not going to spoil, but it just was not put together as well for me as A Court of Mist and Fury was. But I'm very excited for obviously the novella with Farah and Rhysand, just to see more about them as a couple. I think it's set either during A Court of Wings and Ruin or maybe after, but I'm not entirely sure. And then also the next spin-off series, which I just want to see more of the world, but also I really hope that I enjoy the characters as much as I did in this series because they really made it for me. And my last disappointment has to be All That She Can See by Carrie Hope Fletcher, which is another really difficult one to say because Carrie Hope Fletcher's writing is magical. I love the elements of magical realism and the imagination that they have in this book. But the biggest criticism that I've seen on BookTube is that halfway through this book, it just gets really random and it's like it should be split into a duology. I made a review that I'll stick down below about my feelings on this a bit more. But I just feel like the characters in this book I just don't connect with as much as Vincent and Evie from On the Other Side. And it just took me a really long time to read, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting just to fly through it and love it. And I don't think there was enough focus on like reality or baking. It seemed to be very out there and there was too much information all at once for me, which kind of ruined the emotion behind it a little bit. But overall I think I still gave it 3.5 stars. It was just not as good for me as her first book, even though I loved the concept, which is why it was a bit of a disappointment. And the last book that I'm going to mention is one of my absolute most anticipated. I loved this book. It was the best surprise. It was even better than I imagined. And that was How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. We were lucky enough to get advance reader copies all the way back in February for this book when he still hadn't finished final edit. And it was just the best feeling in the world. It was the best. And I got to read it. And when it come out, we went to go see him and he said he recognised me from videos. I just literally couldn't believe the shock of this shit as one of the best things that's happened in 2017 and that this has been a fabulous year. So to say that was one of the best things that's happened is like completely off the scale awesome. But I just couldn't believe how well this book's put together. Obviously I've done a massive review, comprehensive, and I'll stick it in the comments, but I just loved this book, how I was so anticipating it and it still surprised me with how amazing it was and how the narrative was just put together and all the characters in it just made me feel so good. Apparently it's going to be turned into a film with Benedict Cumberbatch, but I haven't heard anything about that yet and I won't want to get my hopes up because that would just be like super amazing. Seems too good to be true, but then again so did the whole getting the book early. But if that was true, then obviously it would just be cherry on top of it was the most amazing book of 2017 cake. I also want to give just a brief quick mention to Strange Zone fanfiction by Chris Colfer because this was one of the biggest surprises for me of 2017. I wasn't expecting a lot because obviously I know Chris Colfer from Glee and he's an actor, but his children's writing and also his YA fiction writing was just so superb. The twist at the end just made me feel so emotional and it was a funny story, but obviously with like a lot of deep, like diverse connections and topics in it, which I really enjoyed as well. So brief mention to that one. I would really recommend it if it's not something you've heard of before. But I really want to hear what your surprises and also disappointments of 2017 were, so we can have a chat about it in the comments. And I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you on the next one. Bye!